Planning a medieval-themed interdenominational holiday party for all of my friends sure is a lot of work, but thankfully all I have to do is salt a whole bunch of eels, and that's just about it. Joe Mason's gonna take care of the rest.
Olivia.
Oh my God, Aran, hello.
Hey, so I just got off the phone with Joe. So you remember how Joe was supposed to bring the Christmas ornaments, the candy canes, the novelty sleigh, the Christmas cookies, the gingerbread house, the plum pudding, the snowman, the stockings, the fruitcakes, the myrrh, and the turkey,
and the booze,
and the booze.
Yes, I do remember that. I'm so glad he is doing the bulk of the work for our medieval Christmas party.
So he might not be able to make it this year.
Oh no! Don't tell me.
He just called me to say that he was on an archaeology site and he dug a hole that was too deep, and now he can't get out of it.
Oh, of course, because they don't have the stairs that go up. Oh no, Joe! How could you be so short-sighted? Oh no, our Christmas party is gonna be ruined!
Who's gonna save our holiday party?
Literally all we have is 500 salted eels.
Olivia, listen. We've got this. We just need to, in the next hour and a half, or however long it takes, depending on how good the conversation is, we need to figure out how to host the greatest medieval-themed holiday party ever on our own without Joe. I know we can do it.
Do you really think so?
Not really, but we're just gonna have to try.
Okay, you know what? If it doesn't work, we'll just go out to the shops, buy as much cider as we can, and drink to forget.
Yeah, and just barricade the door so nobody comes in.
Sounds good.
There never was a podcast recorded here.
Then it becomes a...
They died 50 years ago.
And it becomes a France 1812 themed Christmas party. To the barricades!
So, okay, right. I think first step to trying to figure out how to host a medieval holiday party, we've got to figure out what is Christmas all about.
Absolutely.
Charlie Brown. So let's take it from the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is Christmas?
Well, see, this one's actually quite straightforward. I was on Twitter and I saw a tweet from an account called Fun History with a blue tick that told me that Christmas was actually originally a pagan holiday, and the Christian church stole it.
I saw the same tweet from the Based Pastoralist, who also has a blue tick.
Wow.
Fun fact, that's a real Instagram account.
No!
I'm just thinking about the Based Pastoralist.
Yeah, you spend your whole life in the pastures and then tell me how based that is.
Well, okay, so...
Yeah, I won't lie, that did ring a few alarm bells, but I decided just to take it at face value, because, who would go on the internet and just lie?
You think someone would do that?
No.
Not me, I'd never do that.
No.
Hey, pass the potatoes. Anyway, so, blooming out. So, not exactly. So the problem is that in the first century in Judea, there really was not there were not a lot of great records on people's dates of birth that survived to the modern day, or even survived to the 4th century. So, whilst, and especially because, by the way, early Christians did not really care that much about the details of Christ's early life, because they were pretty sure that they were all going to be enraptured soon anyway, and then it sort of slowly dawned on them that wasn't happening, and they moved the date up to 500, and then 1,000, and then 1,500, and then 2,000, when it kept stubbornly not happening.
Classic.
In many such cases, that's all I'm saying. The date of the apocalypse is always deferred. But there was a popular understanding starts to emerge in around the 4th century, when people are starting to realize, oh, we're actually going to be in this for the long haul, huh? But they should probably get the facts straight about Christ's life. And so they do generally settle on, these early Christians, that Christ is conceived in the vernal equinox and is born in the winter solstice, so December the 25th, or roundabouts that. The problem with the problem with that is that, incidentally, there were already a lot of pagan holidays that coincided with the 25th of December. Either they were sort of around that time, or in some cases were literally on that date. So there's a lot of speculation that the date of Christmas was settled on by early Christians because it was already inhabited by some special holiday of Near Eastern paganism. A great example of that being, in the 19th century, the historian Hermann Usner noted that Emperor Aurelian elevated Sol Invictus to the prime Roman god and named the feast day of Sol Invictus as the 25th of December. Now, Sol Invictus is a deity associated with the sun. Put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that. But a lot of people have disputed that evidence ever since. That basically, lots of people have questioned the sort of the timeline on that, when Sol Invictus was actually elevated, whether or not the 25th was actually, a date that was associated with them, just because it has the word in. People have seen texts that have the word Invictus associated with the 25th. But Invictus is just a word in Latin. It's not a guy's name. So that's on some shaky foundations. I will say, though, that where I will give based history facts blue tick credit is that there is definitely truth that Christianity did appropriate a lot of stuff from other religions. Of course it did. Like, every culture appropriates from other cultures, and especially if the Christians who are being converted are themselves, were themselves pagan at an earlier point in their life, it actually makes quite a lot of sense. They would want to keep the same rhythms and practices that they grew up with, because they'll have emotional associations with that beyond that of, like, religious practice. It'll be a thing that you did with your family or a thing that you did with your community, and you enjoy that and you want to keep doing that. What I object to is sort of the sort of top-down, this top-down narrative where it's like, the church fixed this date because it was already significant, and so they could trick people into being Christian, when in fact, that was something that people sort of, I suspect, did quite autonomously.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it seems like, it creates this false sense of conflict, when really there develops over time a sort of shared pool of culture and of cultural precedent and custom, from which basically everyone is drawing on regardless of their religion.
I really like this idea that, like, we really need to, when we're thinking about, like, how Christianity emerges and becomes the dominant faith in Europe and the Levant in the sort of early sort of centuries after its creation, I think we need to think about it less as these sort of big civilizations smashing into each other and defeating each other or outwitting each other, and more of a sort of more treat these different customs as parallel sort of outgrowths of the same phenomena. And I think one of the interesting ways that you can look at that is to compare Christmas and the sort of the other big December holiday that emerges in the more or less the same part of the world at a not too dissimilar time, which is
Hanukkah. Absolutely. So you have a similar example of a winter festival taking place.
Where light is a very significant part of it.
Yes, light and celebration, and and you may have heard the notion that Hanukkah is only celebrated today because of its proximity to Christmas, to give Jewish people a kind of analog for Christmas. And although that's absolutely part of why Hanukkah looks the way it does in the West in its current form, I mean, there was no Hanukkah bush in the year 100 AD. But nevertheless, Hanukkah has been celebrated for thousands of years, despite the fact that it's not a particularly spiritual holiday for Jewish people. And it's been celebrated for a very long time as a kind of jubilant, festive holiday where you're not bound to the same religious obligations that you are on major Jewish holidays like Yom Kippur and Pesach, but rather it's a day where you feast and you celebrate and just enjoy the goodwill and the light of the holiday.
And so the fact that you have these parallel these parallel holidays that, again, obviously, Christianity being the majority religion in the West will have had a disproportionate effect on Hanukkah, as you say. But I think it is incredibly telling that these same themes are recurring, even when the origin story and the theological importance is so wildly different.
Yeah, of course. Well, one of my favorite misconceptions about the link between Christianity and paganism arises from the reason for the name of Easter. And so a lot of people have...
Ostara, or whatever they say it is.
Well, a lot of people have commented on the fact that the name Easter is actually, in fact, derived from the name of a pagan goddess, an English pagan goddess, or a Germanic pagan goddess, who was a sort of fertility goddess. I'm not even going to try to pronounce her name, but it was like Estra or something. Estra, maybe.
I always thought it was pronounced like Ostara, or like something impenetrable.
Yeah, definitely. No idea. And so it's true that this is where Easter gets its name from. However, Easter was not named after the goddess herself. Rather, this goddess had a pagan feast that was celebrated in the month of April, and therefore the month of April came to be named after this goddess. And therefore that name was given to Easter, which after it had become the primary feast in April. So it wasn't an example of appropriating or stealing or trying to erase a pagan holiday, but rather just a kind of gradual cultural transmission.
Yeah. I think that also, it's interesting you mentioned the lack of a theological basis or emphasis in Hanukkah, because I think you can kind of say the same thing about Christmas. Christmas is culturally a much bigger thing than Easter. But Easter, theologically, is way, way more important to Christianity. Like, Christmas is just the day he gets born. All the important shit happens 33 years later.
Yeah.
Like, but the fact that there are these motifs that keep coming up again. The things happening around the equinox and things to do with light, stars, like things are always glowing and shining, and the fact that has become so entrenched is not, I don't think, it's not a coincidence. I think it's just that, like, if you live in the Northern Hemisphere, it really, really helps in the middle of winter to light a bunch of lights and have a big party. And the theological kind of justification can come after the emotional one and the social one, the social role that it fulfills.
And I think also, purely from a practical standpoint, is it easier to have a massive multi-week festival in spring when you're plowing and sowing and lambing and doing all of these extremely labor-intensive things to get ready for the growing season, or in the middle of winter when there's basically not much on?
The feast is o'er. Now brimming wine in lordly cup is seen to shine before his eager guest. And silence fills the crowded hall, as deep as when the herald's call thrills in the loyal breast.
Hello?
Good evening!
Dracula!
It's me! Hello!
I'm so glad you could make it. We haven't seen you for a few episodes.
But I'm so glad I could make it. Does that mean you want me to come in?
Dracula,
Yes.
you have permission to pass through this doorway.
Get in!
Ah, Dracula.
How are you, Dracula? I haven't seen you in ages. How are you doing? Well, ever since you sent me to that psychiatrist, I've been feeling a lot better. I've really been processing some stuff, and I've been trying to give back a little bit to my community.
Oh, Dracula, you're so sweet.
Yeah, I've actually started working in in a queer pay-what-you-can cafe. I don't make any money, but that's not why I do it, you know?
Well, yeah, it's about more than the money, isn't it?
Before I come in, I need to know, just for like health and safety reasons, do you have any crosses in the building?
Don't worry, Dracula.
We're sort of doing a sort of non-denominational thing this year.
Yeah.
You're good. How do you feel about menorahs? It's fine with me.
Aw, such an ally.
Now, I brought a couple of things for you, my good friends, right? Now, I know you said in the invite that it was BYOB.
So you brought a bottle of wine, did you?
Oh, I see what's happened here.
Oh, you know, B... the B technically does just stand for bottle, but...
I brought them in these large cartons. I hope that's not inconvenient.
Dear. Oh, dear.
Can make some black pudding with it, it's fine.
Yeah, it's no problem. It's the thought that counts, Dracula.
I also brought these lovely candles for you. I bought them from Sainsbury's.
Wow.
I am a creature of the night.
Well, that's perfect, Dracula, because we were about to record the part of our podcast where we talk about Advent, the time of Christmas when you traditionally light a new candle every Sunday.
That's cool. I'll leave the candles here. I don't really want to be around you guys when you're talking about Jesus.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't have the best relationship with that guy. I'm gonna go into the living room, okay?
Sounds good, Dracula.
Okay, you can be happy?
Soon.
There's you can put anything on Spotify, alright? You're good.
Oh, you shouldn't have told Dracula he could have the aux cable. He's just gonna be playing, Transylvanian folk music for the next 5 hours.
If I hear Rob Zombie's Dracula even once, I'm leaving. So, as we were just saying to Dracula there, what comes before Christmas is Advent. And this isn't just a place where you keep chocolates. It means the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas. Now, what would medieval people have been doing in Advent? Do you remember?
It's traditionally marked by fasting, which is then broken on Christmas with a big feast and followed by the customary 12 days of Christmas.
Woot woot, or Christmastide, as it's more appropriately known. Now, in Advent, you'd be doing a couple of things. Like you say, you'd be fasting, but it's important to break down what we mean by fasting, because it's not like people just didn't eat.
Yes.
It's more like you say they changed their diet, and the biggest way they changed their diet is that they did not eat meat. So in Advent, the only meat that you could eat was fish, and the most abundant fish available to you in most of medieval Europe would have been...
eels!
Good old eels!
Love an eel.
So, I love this fact. In 1289, the Bishop of Hereford served a Christmas Eve meal to his guests, which was herring, 5 conger eels, 30 codlings, and salmon, bread, and wine. That actually sounds like pretty tight.
Sounds phenomenal.
Depending on how you season that would actually be really nice.
When I was traveling a couple weeks ago, I was reading about how...
In the land of the Latinas.
In South America, I was reading about how Catholics in South America in like the 16th and 17th centuries obtained special permission from the Pope to eat guinea pigs and capybaras during fasting periods. I guess maybe because they didn't have a lot of access to fish or something. So if
you're inland, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And then, after Advent, as we've said, you have the 12 days of Christmas, which end with Epiphany, which I think is on the 6th of January. So this was not always so. In fact,
Wait, really?
There's a reason why there are 12 days of Christmas.
Because of the song.
Because of the song. That originally didn't necessarily have anything to do with Epiphany. Rather, it had to do with the fact that Catholics in the East and in the West used different calendars. So in the East, they used a lunar calendar, and in the West, they used a solar calendar. And anyone such as
Islam.
Anyone such as myself who's Jewish or anyone who is Muslim will be familiar with the fact that our holidays change dates in the Western calendar. Is it the Julian calendar? The Gregorian calendar?
I can't keep up.
I don't know.
Current one.
The current calendar used here in the United Kingdom and most of Europe and the Americas. So, our holidays change dates every year. And so the church officials didn't want to have to choose between which date Christmas should be celebrated on, because it was actually being celebrated on 2 different days in the East and the West. So instead they said, okay, they're both going to be part of Christmas, and so is every single day in between. So it was purely due to administrative difficulties that we ended up with 12 days of Christmas.
Well, I like it. Oh, by the way, you mentioned the lunar calendar, and that reminded me. I read a wonderful fact when I was researching about the origin of the Christmas date, that in the medieval Islamic world, there were a lot of imams who had to sort of scold their congregations for like getting a bit too into celebrating the Prophet's birthday, because they're like, you're just doing Christmas. This is, I can see what's happening.
Ah, classic.
You just want to celebrate Christmas.
It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, it's the Hanukkah bush all over again.
Yep. Come in.
Hey, it's me!
Oh, it's Guy Fieri! It's weird medieval Guy Fieri!
Long time no see!
Oh my god, it's been ages since you possessed Aran's body with the spirit of medieval flavor.
Yeah, we had to grow a homunculus out of a mandrake root and then put him into that. It was a whole thing.
Yeah, he looks a bit gnarly.
Yeah. I'm gonna take that as a compliment!
Thank you.
I'd forgotten how challenging your voice is to hear.
Well, you're just in time, weird medieval Guy Fieri, because we are delving into the history of medieval foods during Christmas time.
That's brilliant! I've actually brought a whole wild boar!
Wow, and it's still alive! Are we gonna slaughter that in here, or outside?
I can do this! Can I do this in the corner?
Yeah, go ahead.
Alright, I'm just gonna go into the corner and start gutting this pig! I hate this. Actually, you know what, Guy Fieri? Can you go into the other room?
Put a tarp down.
Dracula will help you.
Dracula will love this.
He'll be very into it.
It's right up his alley.
Well, weird medieval Guy Fieri really knows his stuff, because at a proper Christmas feast, you need a wild boar.
Yeah, he's a smart man. I mean, a boar is an incredibly symbolic animal in the Middle Ages, as I would argue it is now. And hunting boar is a really popular pastime amongst medieval aristocracy, because boars are like tanks made out of pork.
And they've got knives on their face.
A tank made out of pork with a knife on its face. And, like, they don't feel pain. They're one of those, I mean, they do feel pain, but they're one of those animals where, like, shooting it just makes it more angry.
One of my favorite facts about boars, and one of the reasons I found it so traumatizing and such a, like, incredible thing to hunt, is because the boar allegedly, after a certain point, it doesn't run from you, it turns around and it charges you. Yes. And that's why they love to sort of attach, as we talked about before, medieval people love to do basically their own version of, like, Aesop's fables or just so stories, in that they would love to attach moral values to animals. And the boar is actually kind of a hybrid in many ways, because it's ferocious, and so it has this, it's associated with tenacity and resilience and martial prowess, but it's also fucking evil.
Yes.
So the boar is, according to the ratio discourses in Mundus et Ratio, where the boar is a beast noir, one of Satan's creatures. Other beasts noir are the fox, the wolf, the bear, and the otter, for some reason. So the boar is a sinner, and he gives bad advice. So don't take advice from a wild boar, because he's an agent of Satan. And so, no, it's super important. And so, isn't it interesting, on the day of the birth of Christ, you kill the servant of the devil and consume his flesh in a hyper-ritualized fashion.
That is very, very fascinating, yeah. I mean,
almost like there's this weird cultural undercurrent to medieval Christmas that's, like, a little bit creepy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, medieval boar hunting was very ritualized. They actually had a special kind of spear. I don't know if you've seen depictions of these.
No, I haven't.
That were only used for boar hunting. And the idea basically is that it looks like a normal spear with a very thick sort of shaft or handle. But right kind of where the pointy metal bit meets this handle, is got kind of a crossbar, like a sword. The idea being that you don't want the boar to stab itself too hard on the spear, because if the spear goes in too deep, then the boar is, like, right next to you. So it's literally...
And then the tusks are right next to you.
Yeah, then the tusks are right next to you. So, yeah, it's very ritualized. And I was actually... This is not a medieval quote, so I'm sorry, but it's such a good quote, I wanted to read it. It's a quote from the guy who founded the scouting movement in the UK.
Baden-Powell.
Huh? Yes!
I was a scout. I know this shit.
And he was like a committed naturalist, environmentalist, except he loved hunting boar. And he had all these quotes like, yeah, I know it's hypocritical, but like, I just love stabbing boar.
Who's that? That's that voice.
And he has a quote that says, "Not only is pig sticking the most exciting and enjoyable sport for both the man and horse as well, but I
doubt the horse is into it.
But I really believe that the boar enjoys it too."
Well,
seems like a reach.
I think that man just thought about this too much.
Yeah. So yeah, apart from your boar, what else have you got? Your medieval Christmas feast?
Another thing you definitely need is mince pies.
Absolutely.
Now, I as a child was always baffled by the name mince pie, and we have mince pies here, by the way. You guys can't see this, but we have, like, the most festive setup imaginable. There are not one but 3 candles directly next to the microphone and laptop in a really frightening way.
But also very aesthetic.
And we have spiced biscuits from Lidl. We have all butter. We have deluxe 6 all butter mince pies from Lidl. There's a little Stollen over there.
Yes, we've got the speculatius.
Yes. Oh, yes. Anyway, so, just to set the scene. Anywho.
And we are drinking big cups of spiced cider.
Yes, homemade spiced cider in a medieval style, but more on that in a minute. So, as a child, I was always baffled by the name. Because I was like... Because my mom would be like, Aaron, let's go and make mince pies. And I'd be like, okay, cool. And then she'd be like, here's the jar of mincemeat. And I was like, wait, what? And then you get it out, and it was not minced meat.
No, there's no meat in
it. There's not anymore.
Not right now.
But back in the Middle Ages, it literally was meat. So a mince pie in a medieval feast was basically just like leftovers. It was like, you know what it was like? It was one of those Tesco meal deal sandwiches that's like all of Christmas in one sandwich.
Yes. Well, yeah, because medieval people had much less of a resistance to combining sweet and savory, and so you get a lot of medieval recipes that include meat, but also massive amounts of spices that we associate with desserts, like cinnamon and nutmeg, and also lots of sugar. So you would have these pies that were like minced meat, but also nuts and raisins and spices and sugar. And it was, very popular in the Middle Ages, kind of fell out of fashion afterwards, and eventually a more sanitized version was created that didn't include any meat. Yeah,
so you'd have, like, beef, lamb, goose, chicken, basically whatever you had lying around, plus what you know of today, which is, the suet and the fruit and the spices and the sugar. Because it was, as we mentioned before, this is a very fallow part of the year. You're basically just sort of working with whatever you've got lying around. You can't grow anything. You can't really harvest many new things. So you're basically just left with what's lying around. And so the mince pie is a great way to sort of combine leftovers into something that, at least to the medieval palate, is edible.
I mean, okay, controversial. I think it sounds pretty good. If you ever go to, like, an Indian restaurant in the UK...
I do.
And you can get, like, a curry... that's got loads of cream and stuff in it, but then you can also get rice that has, like, nuts and raisins in it as well. And the whole kind of culinary sensation, I think, is wonderful.
Okay, you know what? I'll give you that. I'm still not sure about it in a pie.
Fair enough.
But I take your point.
Valid.
I'm extremely valid.
While we're on the topic of food, I think it's worth mentioning, as any Jewish listeners will know, that food was also an extremely important part of Hanukkah celebrations, as it is now. So, just like in the present day, fried foods were very popular on Hanukkah. As like a young Jewish kid, I felt like I was often told that fried foods were consumed because of the symbolic importance of like oil in the Hanukkah story. And
that seems like a post-rationalization.
The sense I got from researching this was more just that medieval Middle Eastern cultures loved fried food. And so, of course, they featured in most festivities. But I think something that is quite a distinction between Christianity and Judaism is that Judaism is really, really full of these foods with incredible symbolic importance. Not just in the act of eating the food itself, but also in the taste and in your response to it. I mean, because I think Christians, take communion once a week in certain sects, and from what I understand, you're eating like a little square of bread.
It doesn't taste like nothing.
A dried wafer, and it's about kind of the symbol of consuming.
It's incredibly underwhelming.
And if you compare that to once a week as a child on Friday nights going to the Erev Shabbat services at the synagogue, and afterwards we'd all gather around a table in the synagogue's kitchen, and they'd plunk down these two massive, warm, like steaming loaves of golden brown challah bread, and we'd all stand around them and say the prayers, and then just start, kids would just start like ripping chunks off with our hands and devouring it, because it was just the most delicious thing ever. And it's really important in Judaism to have like these specific types of food, and also to have food that you enjoy. I was reading about medieval food traditions in Judaism, and one thing that I really enjoyed, not Hanukkah specific, but a little tidbit I'd like to share, is that in medieval times, when a Jewish child came of age to begin to learn Torah, one of the customs was that he would be given a cake made with honey and be told to eat the cake, and also that they would write the letters they would write the first words of Torah that he'd begin reading upon a slate, and then they would cover the words in honey, and the child would lick them off. And the idea was that the words of God would be as sweet as honey in this child's mouth, and that would set the stage for the rest of his experience engaging with Torah.
Oh, that's fun. I like that.
Yes. So you're literally consuming God's words, and by creating this sort of sweet experience, that's supposed to set the stage for your relationship with Torah.
I don't know, I think we can, once again, I think if we're doing a sort of comparative history here of Christianity and Judaism in this period, I think what we can take from this is that there is something incredibly life-affirming about sharing food.
Yes.
And in this incredibly sort of fallow period when we're all just sort of, just sort of happy to be alive, and like just to be surviving, which is is a huge part of the sort of not spiritual but like sort of moral story of Hanukkah. I think I think that it what I get from this is that the food that you eat at these feasts, or at these on these special occasions or feast days, are a way of saying, as a society, we are still here.
Yes.
We are still alive, despite the fact that it's horrible out, and there's like wolves and boars.
Yeah.
On the just on the fringes of our society, we are still around.
Yes, absolutely. And this is attested from, even though the story of Hanukkah and the impetus to celebrate it doesn't appear in the Old Testament, in the earliest sources, food is very centric to the Hanukkah story. And so we have specifically verses relating to Hanukkah from Jewish sources that say, here's a quote, "Because of this, the children of Israel shall make a very great feast in their pots and cauldrons, with pieces of cheese, gladness and feasting, a good day of sending portions to one another, food from the frying pan, and dough kneaded until it is leavened, so its glory will grow with honey, all manner of baked goods. The Jews ordained and took it upon themselves to confirm this letter, to make a day of feasting and joy, and a good day." So
that says it all, doesn't it?
It's very evocative, and there was a great medieval quote that I read from a rabbi who said, "One must not make light of the custom of eating fried food on Hanukkah. It is a custom of the ancient ones."
This KFC came from antiquity.
Exactly.
I mean, you have to treat that with a grain of salt, because whenever any medieval person says, actually, Alexander the Great did this.
Yes.
Whether they're Jewish or Christian or whatever, you always have to go like, yeah, but you would say that, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, but it did seem like it was actually, in this case, extremely well attested that the practice of eating fried food in oil, and fried dough specifically, was a very long-standing custom. But yeah, it's true that the customs developed and changed a lot. So some examples I found of foods that were eaten in different places in the world on medieval Hanukkah were balls of dough, which were deep-fried and drenched in hot honey. So that originated in the Middle East, but kind of spread worldwide with different variations. In France, you might have fried pastry stuffed with dried fruits and nuts. In Italy, you might have ravioli fried and stuffed with cheese, eggs, and spices. Noodles were also popular in Italy, and cheese everywhere was a traditional Hanukkah food. And so this is actually another interesting story, and then I'll wrap up Hanukkah foods.
No, I'm having fun.
But actually, the story of Judith kind of became associated with Hanukkah, despite it not actually having anything sort of, to do with it from the sources that we know. So it's kind of unclear how this link exactly formed. But the story of Judith and similar stories that became linked with Hanukkah featured the practice of Judith, who was a Jewish woman who had moves made upon her, so to speak, by Holofernes. And Holofernes essentially implied that he was going to rape her, so Judith put it off by saying, "Let's wait until the evening and I'll cook you dinner." And apparently, as the story goes, Judith made him pancakes and put lots of salt and cheese on them so he would get thirsty and drink lots of wine, at which point he got so drunk that he fell asleep, and she hammered a tent post into his head and beheaded him. And so this is a story of Jewish triumph, and I really, really like that people heard this story and thought Judith fed this evil guy cheese pancakes to kill him, so let's eat lots of cheese pancakes.
I'll drink to that.
So yeah, but again, lots of symbolic importance with food on Hanukkah as well, and as a medieval Jew, you can bet your buttons you'd be eating very well.
So, we've got it all. We've got all we need to do. We've got the wild boar. All we need to do is fry some dough, stuff some shit into a pie.
Yes.
And we're set.
We need lots of honey.
Lots of
always honey.
And I'm going to stay away from your pancakes from now on.
Yeah, don't drink the wine.
Oh my god, why is everybody early?
Unbelievable.
Alright, fine. Ooh.
Alexander the Third of Scotland.
The ghost of Alexander the Third of Scotland. Aye, what's happening? Hello everybody, it's me. Ever since I died tragically on a hearse in Fife. Oh no, I didn't get to Fife, is that right? Alright. Ever since I died, very, very, very fucking pissed in West Lothian. I've been looking for a place where I can drown my sorrows. You wouldn't happen to have any booze lying about, would you?
Oh no, he's forever stuck as the world's drunkest ghost.
He's the ghost of Christmas piss.
Ah! Pashed.
I saw it as... Where's your hot babe from Fife, anyway? Oh, no, she was a wee bit delayed. She was at the Wraith Rovers game, and things got a wee bit feral. You can't know people fae Fife are. Can't trust to me.
You're so right, Alexander the Third.
Alright, well, look. Do you have anything to bring here? I have got a wee bit of bevy, eh?
Ah, Alexander, you should let me take that off you so you don't pose a further risk to yourself.
You're right, it was just slipping through my ghostly hands. I'm actually fine. I've only had a couple of drinks. I'm good to go, officer.
Alexander III, why don't... Dracula and a weird medieval Guy Fieri are butchering a wild boar in the other room. Why don't you go join them and, see if you can make yourself useful. Don't strain yourself too much.
Alright, I'm just gonna go into the living room and... I forgot what I was gonna say.
Oh, dear. Yeah, run along.
Oh my god, the ghosts are real!
I mean, you're a vampire.
I didn't know there'd be a second thing. Well, that brings us to a very important point, though, doesn't it? Which is, we need to have some booze on hand. So, what has he even brought here?
So the most traditional, I would argue, medieval Christmas drink is the wassail.
Wassail?
Wassail.
What's wassail?
So wassail is part of there's a toast. So in order to toast, you say wassail.
Wassail!
And I say trinkale.
Trinkale!
And it's basically drinking to... wait, don't drink yet. Do not drink yet.
Oh,
because an important part of medieval drinking...
Oh no, she's standing up.
I don't know if you're aware of this.
You gotta have to talk really loud.
So, when we drink nowadays, if we drink to someone...
You just made me spill wassail all over me.
When we drink to someone, what do we do? What do we call that?
Cheers? No,
What's the word for drinking?
Toasting.
We toast. And the origins of the concept of toasting...
This was a setup. Well, that's why you put bread in the toaster.
Arise from the fact that in the Middle Ages...
She's holding toast, everyone.
I'm holding a slice of toast.
Here's one she prepared earlier.
No medieval drinking session was complete without what's called your sop, which is the piece of bread that you put in your drink.
Oh, God.
So,
okay, for context, everybody, she warned me that there was a garnish to this, but wouldn't tell me what it is.
And
I'm gonna have to drink bread juice.
No, it's okay. Well, we can both dunk it in mine.
No. I'm gonna get into character.
Yeah.
If we're trying to do a medieval holiday party, I need to get medieval with it.
And so officially, wassail was the sort of spiced cider or ale that was drunk in the Middle Ages, so either apple cider or ale or maybe some kind of wine. And it would have spices and fruit often would be added to it as well, sometimes roasted apples. But the most important part was you would also throw a bunch of toast on it as well. And you'd have it in a big bowl.
This offends me on
so.
Okay, I'm just gonna lightly dunk it.
And this was I think it was just part of making, bread more palatable. It was just a filling meal.
Can I eat this?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it tastes good, but this was already pretty good challah bread. So.
Yeah, that's fair.
Did you make this yourself?
Yeah.
Sweet.
And so, yeah, I've got mine sitting for a while. And so the medieval practice
I hate looking at that.
Wassailing is rather akin to modern caroling, which was also kind of a thing in the Middle Ages, but wassailing was kind of the primary cultural practice. It was traditionally done on the last day of Christmas. And essentially what this entails, so there are two types of wassailing. So kind of the mainstream type is that you would go door to door with a bunch of, your fellow townspeople, your neighbors. And in particular, you would probably go to the houses of landlords or wealthy people in your neighborhood. And you'd be carrying with you this big wooden bowl of this spiced punch. It would have a bunch of bread floating on it.
Oh, God.
And you'd knock on people's doors and you'd sing them carols, or you would say prayers and give them your blessings, and then you would offer them a drink from the wassail bowl. And so in exchange, you would hope that they would, feel some sense of goodwill towards you, and that they would maybe then give you some food or some money or some sort of other small gift. Okay, this bread is
that's
properly
that's
soggy
awful.
now.
Oh no, it just broke off. Oh my God. You're
It
fucked.
broke off. I am fucked.
Meanwhile, while Olivia's dealing with that, I'd just like to note that here's another example of a sense of collective communion. where you are communing of the same thing. You
Wait.
know,
Actually, no.
I'm trying to cover for the fact that Olivia's got a giant wooden spoon and is trying to fish out her bread
Oh, dear.
from the wassail.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
It makes a disgusting sound when it comes out.
A nice, like, plop.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, it's going to be very authentic.
I don't know why the practice of offering someone a soggy slice of bread in what was probably, like, lukewarm beverage by the time you got to the third or fourth person's house.
You know, it probably tasted pretty good. It's like a crouton.
It is a bit, actually. Yeah, I kind of rate this.
From a, like, sensory point of view, I hate it. But,
Yeah.
like, I can rationalize my way into, like, understanding why you think it was good.
Well, especially because, you know, you aren't necessarily baking bread every day. You might have bread that's 3 or 4 days old, it's gone a bit dry.
Croutons!
But yeah, this was a big cultural thing, and that's why it's called toasting.
Well, I guess that makes this a toast of London. Oh, wassail.
Trinkel.
Hey, and now we can drink.
Now we can drink. But
That's the stuff.
I should mention there was a second type of wassailing that also took place
What did you do to the punch now?
exclusively within the apple-growing, cider-producing regions of southwest England.
Ooh-ah-ooh-ah-ray! Here we fucking go!
Yep.
Alright, my lovelies. Time to
Exactly.
put on the wurzels and let's get some scrumpy.
So in Somerset, you might
Somerset.
be wassailing on the same day, but it would look a bit different because you would actually be going around to your apple orchards. In fact, let me just read you out a quote.
You'd love that.
The purpose of wassailing is to awake the cider apple trees and to scare away evil spirits to ensure a good harvest of fruit in autumn. The ceremonies of each wassail vary from village to village, but they generally all have the same core element. A wassail king and queen lead the song and or a processional tune played or sung from one orchard to the next. The wassail queen will then be lifted up into the boughs of the tree, where she will place toast soaked in wassail as a gift to the tree spirits. Then an incantation is recited, such as... Can you recite this with your best Somerset accent?
Okay. Wassail ye trees, they may bear you many a plum and many a pear, for more or less fruits they will bring, as you do give them wassailing.
Exactly.
Again, okay, here's another thing that I keep noticing when we're talking about these traditions, which is there's a lot of emphasis on the idea of, like, supernatural entities having a sort of physical presence and able to sort of influence the world. Like, I think one of the reasons why people sort of point to things like the wassail tree as being like a pre-Christian or a pagan thing is because we're very uncomfortable with the idea that there are of strangeness in Christianity and things that you can't explain and things that are sort of eerie or otherworldly, when in fact, if you were a devout medieval Christian person, you probably did believe in, like, tree spirits and, like, boars that were evil. Like, maybe you didn't literally think, oh, if I offend the tree spirit, they're gonna get killed, but you were aware of these kind of forces because whether or not your tree fruits properly has an effect on your life, and it's something you can't really control.
Yes, exactly.
And so, you know, I think that it's not too crazy to say that some kind of genuine belief in these kinds of supernatural entities that aren't found in the Bible can definitely be seen in pre-modern Christianity, and it's not something that we should treat as being outside of Christianity.
And I would take it a step further personally by arguing that, on the contrary, a lot of medieval people actually managed to synthesize their supernatural beliefs into Christianity extremely well. Because if you look at medieval books such as bestiaries, which I would say are wholly Christian books, but they draw on pre-Christian sources.
Well, they're being produced hundreds upon hundreds of years after, you know, a society has been converted.
Exactly, but they include a lot of characters and creatures from classical mythology, such as satyrs, centaurs, dragons, sirens, and it's not perceived by the people who wrote these books to be sacrilege to suggest that these creatures exist. On the contrary, they're saying, well, actually, centaurs are very evil creatures and they're very ungodly, and they synthesize, these creatures into their Christian schools of thought. And to imagine that, these people probably did believe in some sort of supernatural forces, in maybe dark magic and good magic, as was very common in the Middle Ages and very accepted, that doesn't at all conflict with notions of a Christian society.
Which is why the most medieval modern writer is C.S. Lewis.
Yes.
Because his books are full of weird shit, but also the lion is Jesus.
Yes, correct.
Okay, right. So, we've got our food, we've got our drink figured out. As long as we don't have any more people coming to the party, we should be able to figure this...
Oh, no.
Right, okay, alright, just presentable. Welcome to my home. It's actually your house, I forgot about that. Welcome to Olivia's home. We're so happy to have you. This is not giving me a panic attack.
Okay, we can do it. Okay. Come in.
Hello there.
Conrad Kaiser.
It's me,
The famous inventor.
beloved inventor of such inventions as giant fork, man grabber, large egg, and many, many more.
I did love large egg, I won't lie.
It's not very Christmassy, though.
Have you brought something for Christmas, Conrad Kaiser?
Not exactly a thing, more of an idea of a thing.
It's the thought that counts.
I would like to pitch you my latest invention. The fully mechanical automaton nativity play. You can watch the baby Jesus' head go up and down, as powered by the magic of steam.
That sounds very novel.
It's pretty rad.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I want to see this in action. In fact, I know a few people who can help you out with it.
Yes, I know a suspiciously wealthy Eastern European prince who might be able to give you some seed funding.
Absolutely.
If you help him out with this boar.
Yeah, Alexander III of Scotland, Dracula, and weird medieval Guy Fieri are in the living room butchering a boar for us. So maybe if you go talk to them, they'll give you a hand getting this mechanical Christmas play set up.
Wonderful.
Good to see you as ever, Conrad Kaiser.
It's good to be back. I didn't think that anyone would remember me because nobody listened to episode 4.
You know what? It was recorded while both of us were extremely hungover and I was at an all-time energy low.
That's probably why I exist.
But you were still a valuable contribution, and we see you and we respect you, even if no one else does.
It's good to finally give you your day in the sun. Well, I have to say, I think that the idea of a fully mechanical automaton powered by steam of the nativity play is a pretty entertaining idea. But that reminds me, we need to figure out our entertainment.
What's a Christmas, or any holiday for that matter, without entertainment?
Fun fact, I have no idea if this is going to make it into the show or not. I just thought you'd find this fun. Every year at Christmas, me and my cousins would put together a play to perform for the adults in the week leading up to Christmas, and then we would charge entry, and then at the end we'd go to the corner shop and buy sweets.
That is adorable.
It's very adorable. We also did an Easter play one year where I played Jesus, and it produced some of the funniest images ever of me on the cross.
We'll come back to that later. We will be returning to that. Excellent.
We did a wonderful adaptation of A Christmas Carol.
Oh, you
where
guys.
I was just drinking ginger beer. I played Scrooge as an alcoholic who was always drinking ginger beer.
That's amazing.
So I've always been a theater kid. So, if you want to have the premier medieval Christmas entertainment experience, there's nothing better than a mystery play.
Ooh.
So a mystery play is a play which depicts an episode from the Bible, the Old or New Testament, and a miracle. Excuse me. And a miracle play depicts a saint's life. One of the big ones. And these would be quite the production. So originally this would just be like a little thing that we put on in church. Like some local players would come along and like act out the scenes. But they got more and more extravagant the longer the Middle Ages went on, so that by the end of the Middle Ages, in major towns, the way that it would be set up, right, is before the day, on Christmas Day, there would be the wealthy and great and good of the town would pay to have their home, the outside of their home, included in a route map, and then at like 4 a.m., the first of a series of wagons would set off. And the wagon would come along to the first location, and it would have scenery on it and stuff like that, and it would start acting out the first of the plays. And then that play would finish, and the next person would come along, and they'd play the next section of the Bible. And they would be like, it would run for 12 hours.
That's
12
amazing.
hours of just like different performing troops going around the town on this route, doing each stop. And it sounds fucking exhausting, to be absolutely honest.
It does.
Because you've got to be standing around in the cold, and the performers are performing all the time for 12 hours.
Jesus.
So yeah, they originally started out as just like little things that were done in the church, but they got too rowdy, basically, as tended to happen in the Middle Ages. And so people, they sort of moved out of the church and into lay society. Interesting. Another example is over the course of the Middle Ages, the church becomes more bureaucratized and more separated from the lay population. A theme that we might return to in future.
Yeah, who's to say?
So in general, speak a little bit about those actors. In general, unsurprisingly, men played both the male and female parts, whereas the women, to be fair, would work like backstage and would be involved in like making sets and costumes and stuff. Now in smaller towns, it would usually be a spontaneous group of people who would put this together, and in larger towns, it would be like the town guilds who would organize this. And this would be like planned months in advance. It's like, having seen some of these like productions, similar kinds of productions that are put on in parts of Europe now, you need to start planning this like 6 months out. It's insane how much work needs to go into them.
Yeah, I mean, costumes, crazy expensive.
Yeah. And so in the larger towns, it would often be professional entertainers who would be doing the performances. And as we know from the Jesters episode, actors were not seen as sort of socially desirable people, a bit like podcasters. So they'd be paid for their time, but their wages would be docked if they were seen to act badly or forget their lines.
Wow, that's brutal.
I do love people would get really into it. Like, there was a story that I read of a guy who played Jesus in Metz in the 15th century, where he put on the cross and almost died. He almost died for art.
Did they actually nail him?
No, I think they just hung him, but it's quite intense to be crucified, even if you're not nailed.
You would know, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would know. I guess we have to keep that in now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sounds like an intense scenario.
Well, also, it's like, the way that I like to explain why people went to the bother of all that is, this is getting less and less of a culturally relevant comparison, but I like to compare it to like the BBC One Christmas Day kind of like set list, where it's like 5 p.m. Doctor Who, 6 p.m. Call the Midwife, 8 p.m. I skipped a couple of PMs there. 8 p.m. Mrs. Brown's Boys. It's like you would have like people will sit in front of the telly for like hours and hours and hours and hours, and because part of the experience of Christmas Day is just sitting back and taking in some weird bullshit, essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think another good analog could be the Thanksgiving Day parade.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's not like Thanksgiving is necessarily a major spiritual holiday, but once something becomes a thing and it's beloved and people want it, then, it not only does it remain a thing, but you could argue that it becomes kind of a bigger deal each year as they try to make it more exciting and more engaging every year.
I think that also part of the appeal is also just like the human interest, because one of the things that we forget when we sort of study the stories of the Bible, both the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Bible, as like theological stories, is that they're great human interest stories as well. Like, Noah and the flood, right? It's about a bickering husband and wife who are trying to survive the apocalypse. It's basically Independence Day. It's like a Roland Emmerich movie. And, the story of Moses and the Pharaoh is about political intrigue and injustice and inequality.
Yeah.
Themes that are as resonant, today as they were then. Just look at the Prince of Egypt movie.
Yes.
And the Passion of the Christ is about, universal love and compassion and humility and self-sacrifice. These are compelling things. And that's why I make the Christmas Day TV comparison, because it's like you would take it in as a piece of art, as a piece of entertainment, not just because you're being lectured to about Jesus, but because it's good fun.
Yes, absolutely. And there were also similar practices in the Jewish community. So Jewish people may be familiar with the fact that on Passover we read out the story. Not on Passover. I'm gonna get my jar revoked.
You already got. I don't know why you do this to yourself. The shit people give you every time you post a Jewish thing.
It's so funny.
It's so much worse than anything else.
I know, it's really funny.
Because it's like, it has this theological and, identitarian component, so people are like, you got that wrong. It's like, for now.
But, and I even have corrected myself in error, because you also read out the story of Passover on Passover. But the thing I was trying to describe...
So this whole detour was pointless.
The thing I was trying to describe was that you do a kind of communal public reading of the Purim story on Purim also being sort of a festival day rather than a strictly spiritual holiday in Judaism. So you read out the story of Passover, and at least in my synagogue growing up, you get given a little noisemaker, and every time they say the names of the heroes, you get to cheer and say, yay, woo, and every time they say the names of the villains, you boo and you jeer.
But this is exactly what happens with some of the later miracle plays, because I talked about a lot of examples of biblical biblical stories being adapted for these plays, but also there's a lot of saints' lives, and it has the tone of a pantomime.
Yes.
In that, like, the people are it's all very structured around, like, there's the hero and there's the villain, and then they have to have some sort of resolution that can be, like, sad. People are fulfilling these very specific roles. It's uncannily like the pantomime, which is a great modern British tradition.
Yes.
And I would argue is perhaps directly descended from the miracle play. It's all because the miracle play, you're encouraged to be like, fuck you, to the dragon.
Yeah, exactly. And in medieval Jewish communities on Hanukkah, there is a similar practice of reading out the Hanukkah story in the same manner as the Purim story. So, yes, a very similar event. One thing I wanted to mention briefly as well, while we're on the topic, because you touched briefly on women not being necessarily involved on the stage in medieval Christmas plays or medieval miracle plays. I just wanted to bring up a point about Jewish women on Hanukkah, which is that Hanukkah, as I've said before, is particular.
Well, what would you know about that?
Hanukkah, as I've said before, differs from sort of more spiritual Jewish holidays in that there's no compulsion to cease working and to cease certain activities on Hanukkah. However, there's one exception, which is that in certain Jewish communities, including many Jewish communities in the Middle Ages, women were forbidden from working on Hanukkah. And this is also very interesting because normally women weren't even forbidden from working during days like the Sabbath and during the high holy days of Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. And this is because of the association with the Judith story and Hanukkah and the idea. And women also are compelled to be involved in the lighting of the candles on Hanukkah. The idea being that this was a miracle or a great deed that was brought about by women. And so they are equally involved, if not more involved than men. So, very interesting.
God damn. There you go. Learned a lot today.
All right, on to mumming.
Yeah. So, that was what happened in the richer and bigger towns in the Middle Ages. But let's be honest, building sets and costumes is incredibly intense and hard work that you can't necessarily spare if you are a subsistence community. Luckily, in lots of parts of Europe, especially in England, there's an alternative to the mystery plays, which is mumming. Now, mumming is basically just like a tradition where you put on a mask, dance around a town, act out little stories, do stuff. Now, this is the point at which everybody says, aha, because mumming is a pre-Christian tradition.
Christian equals pagan. Confirmed.
It was practiced by, Anglo-Saxons before they converted to Christianity. And so a lot of people say, aha, here's another example of Christianity, the pagan holiday. But again, if you look at what mumming what actually meant before the advent of Christianity, it's a very familiar story. The idea is it's performed sort of really from around Halloween onwards to just past the winter solstice. And the idea is that you do it as a practice to make sure that the sun comes back, essentially. Now, I would say...
That's very Aztec.
It's very Aztec, but also I would say it's extremely Christian. Because what is Christmas but the story of, it's a story about a guy, about death and rebirth. That's what the story of Christ is all about, right? Isn't it interesting that a festival associated with the sun that's about the cycle of death and rebirth would become associated with Christianity? Like, I think what we've been sort of subliminally doing, I think, or at least I have. I don't know if you are in on this at all, but this is what I've been trying to do, is sort of make the point that, like, when this time of year is a weird liminal time. It feels weird. The days are too short, and, darkness is frightening, and food is scarce, and it's, if you live in a small community, if you live in just like on your own basically, or in a small family unit, that's an intense and frightening thing. You are coming in a very literal sense closer to death than you will
Yes.
at the rest of the sort of yearly cycle. And so I think that it's not a coincidence that I don't think it's a coincidence that the story of Christmas became attached to a story of, or to stories about sun cults and bringing the sun back and stuff like that, because it's a universal impulse. People want to sit down at their Christmas feast and look at the agent of the devil that they've killed, and say, "We are here, we are alive, we have survived another year. Have at thee."
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm not Jewish or a scholar of Jewish theology, but I would say that is not too dissimilar from the theme of Hanukkah.
Yes, no, I'm completely with you. Yeah,
I think we're still here.
It's a deeply human thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a deeply human thing to look winter in the face and say, "Mon then, let's have a square go." So yeah, I mean, I don't want to overstate that kind of the arcane significance of it. Like certainly by the time that Christianity gets introduced, like mumming becomes much more about entertainment.
But no, it also feels like something that would be deeply cathartic, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like, it would be people going around basically, like, performing little plays about, like, Beelzebub or Father Christmas, more on him later, or St. George, and quite often it would be, fun fact about St. George and the dragon story, that's quite a hard story to tell because dragon prop is expensive. So quite a lot of the time, the dragon was metaphorical. So, for example, after the Crusades, the dragon becomes the Turkish knight.
Classic.
So, politics gets folded into culture, gets folded into social experience, and how people interpret the way that people interpreted, these classic, biblical stories was characterized by culture and the politics of the time.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Oh my god, if that's not Joe Mason with the turkey and the candy canes and the decorations and all that, I'm gonna flip. I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired.
Well, should we just see whoever it is and,
Yeah,
let him in. Let him in.
It is the spirit of Christmas.
'Tis the season.
'Tis the bloody season, I guess. Humbug. Welcome. Who is it?
Everybody, hello, it's been so long, I'm back from Italy, surprise!
Oh my god, it's big time Olivia!
That's right, it's your favorite medieval Italian-American from the Bronx.
How was Italy? Oh my god!
Oh my god, it was wonderful. It turns out they don't have bodegas over there, and when I learned that the pizza is very different, that was a bit of a shock, I won't lie.
How did you do it without any tomatoes?
Well, let's just say that Bronx girls make do.
What could that possibly mean? That's beautiful.
The interpretation of that statement is left as an exercise to the reader.
I thought the horror episode was in October.
But most importantly, let's not focus on that. Let's focus on all of the wonderful gifts I brought back for you guys from Italy.
From 14th century... Gifts from 14th century Italy.
That's right. As you know, Italy is famous for its luxury brands. So I went to a real medieval, authentic Italian marketplace. And the men there, they told me all of these goods are 100% authentic luxury brands. They are not knockoffs. So I got you these sunglasses from Bucci. I got you a handbag from Verhaki. I got you these shoes from Dolce and Banana. And I got you this belt from Barmani.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, big time Olivia.
No problem. I'm just doing what I do best.
That's right. Now, there's some sort of hog butcher situation in there. I would appreciate it if you could sort of apply some of your Bronx girls makes do, can do attitude to making that whole thing work.
Well, as a Jewish girl...
Wait a minute, you're Jewish?
Yes! No, I'm Italian, just kidding.
You can be Italian and Jewish.
Yeah, no, that's not a thing. As an Italian, I do love a good salami, so I have a vested interest in making sure that this scenario all goes according to plan.
Thank you, big time Olivia.
I'm off.
Look, we gotta just sort some stuff in here, but we'll be through in a minute with, we don't know quite yet what with. But, we'll see you in a bit, okay?
Alright, see you later. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Tell your mother hello from me.
Me, goodbye. You're going into a different room. Do you have
Alright,
object
I'll
permanence?
see you soon. Alright, bye-bye, darling.
Right, okay, we need to, like, figure this out, because, like, people are here now. The party is here.
And what are we gonna give all of our medieval Christmas party guests as their gifts?
I mean, we have Dolce and Banana, but I don't think that'll play. Gift giving. Right, okay, what do people give people in the Middle Ages?
Well, all of the usual stuff. I mean, food and money, those are some of the most popular gifts.
But they also like to give, like, writing and poetry.
Yes.
Like, so the great example is, like, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Like, that probably originated based on the sort of how the story starts, which, of course, starts with King Arthur and his knights at the round table at Christmas, being like, who shall give us a tale?
Yeah.
Like that, you can imagine that very easily that being meant to be sort of read at the Christmas dinner, sort of in the sort of style that it was a dark and stormy night kind of way.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I touched on before with wassailing that often there would be this kind of exchange between a peasant and their lord, and that was an important component to gift giving as well, that a peasant kind of owed their lord their fealty and their sort of, respect, but also that the lord should recognize and acknowledge and return some of that favor with a gift.
It's very sort of you there, boy, bring the biggest goose you can find, sort of thing.
Yes, exactly.
You know, it's the noblesse oblige.
Yep.
One more thing to say about Gwen and the Green Knight, which is that, of course, there is, in that story, a boar hunt. Interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
These themes keep recurring. It's almost like these are important cultural motifs that people at the time would have recognized. So if there's nothing particularly unique about, there's nothing particularly different about medieval gift giving. My big question is, who's giving all these gifts?
Santa Claus?
Well, sort of. Only if you're Dutch. So, there is in medieval England a concept of Father Christmas. Now, of course, for any sort of Americans or non-English speakers, Father Christmas is basically the British name for Santa. Like, it's the same guy.
Yes.
But that's more of a sort of traditional name for him. Now, Father Christmas does exist in medieval culture, but he's not a specific guy, and he's not meant to be literally real. He's more like the ghost of Christmas Present in A Christmas Carol, or, to use the source material's name, A Muppet's Christmas Carol, where he's just like a jolly fellow who represents the spirit of the season. Now, to understand how that guy becomes Santa, we need to talk about Nicholas of Myra. Now, Nicholas of Myra was a bishop in what is now modern-day Turkey. He was a Greek Christian, and he lived in the 3rd and 4th centuries. And he was reported to have been an incredibly charitable, generous man. Now, of course, we don't have any contemporary accounts of his life. We only have hagiographies, so we don't know how much of this is real. But it's certainly fair to say that he is of the saints. He's particularly associated with charity and with children. So he becomes, after his death, when he is canonized, he is the patron saint of children. And he's also, by the way, I have a list of other things that he's lesser known for being the patron saint of, which are archers, brewers, pawnbrokers, unmarried people, and students.
Wow, he's got it all.
He's got it all. Now, particularly in the Dutch-speaking parts of the world, he becomes known as Sinterklaas, which is a Dutchification of Saint Nicholas, who was celebrated and is still celebrated on the 5th of December. Basically, what happens on Sinterklaas is a kid gets elected bishop, money gets distributed to poor people and to children by putting it in their shoes. Now, that tradition keeps on going in the Dutch-speaking world into the modern period, when it is brought by Dutch settlers to America.
Classic.
And gets appropriated by American culture at large, who transform him into
Santa Claus.
So it wasn't Coca-Cola who invented fucking Santa.
Stop repeating that myth.
It was the Dutch.
Even worse than a large mega corporation. Over time, this tradition kind of combined with local folklore and other traditions to give a wide range of Christmas gift givers. So most of these, we have the first evidence of them after the medieval period. So I won't dwell too long on these, but a couple I enjoyed reading about are a French character who's apparently prevalent in South and East France, as well as Belgium and Switzerland, who's named Père Fouettard, which is French apparently for Old Man Whipper or Father Whipper, who is like a dark Santa who accompanies Santa Claus around and gives the naughty children beatings and coal.
Shadow the Hedgehog for Santa.
Based like Wario for Santa. And also, I think this tradition is still a thing in Catalonia.
Yes.
The gifts are given by a log that shits them out.
Oh, shit. I've just realized. We spent all this time talking about medieval Christmas, and we didn't actually do any medieval Christmas. We're fucked.
No. We're totally screwed.
Okay,
All of our guests are gonna hate us. You know what Dracula gets like when he's angry.
Yeah, well. I think we're just gonna have to go in and just break it to them that we didn't put on a very good Christmas this year.
Yeah.
Or Hanukkah.
Well, I think we gotta just bite the bullet and, just do it.
Okay, here we go. Inshallah. What's all this?
Oh my god, you guys!
It looks beautiful.
That's right. These guys were making a total dog's dinner of the salami, so I butchered the pig myself and turned it into sausages for us.
This looks amazing.
And I have finally assembled my Nativita scene. It only blew up 3 times.
Wow. I'm not gonna lie, it still looks like it probably breaks some fire codes, but I don't even care, because it's the holidays!
As you can see, I've lit all of these beautiful candles.
And that must have been a massive struggle for you, Dracula.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm aristocracy. Mostly I just watched.
You contribute so much, Dracula.
Oh, thank you.
Gay Dracula, who's
I'm
also Aran's roommate.
I'm a queer icon, what can I say?
Alexander III of Scotland, you might not have contributed much, but you're so drunk that you forgot to drink all of the other alcohol you brought with you, leaving some for us.
I mostly just brought my sparkling personality. And this sparkling wine.
Wow. Classic Alexander.
And I used all that blood to make mince pies.
It's a Christmas
What kind of blood
feast.
was it again?
Don't worry about it. Too late now.
Oh,
I mean, I'm so amazed, you guys. You put together such an amazing feast. I just feel really bad because we don't have any presents for you. Because Joe Mason's still in that hole.
and he probably will be for the foreseeable future.
Sorry, just can't try to imagine Joe listening to this.
It's good. He'll like it. 'Cause he's part of the lore now.
Joe Mason's
It's good. It's good. Wait. What's over
Yeah,
there?
I don't know what you're talking about. There's all these presents over there.
What? Who brought all of those?
I didn't get... Did you buy presents?
I didn't buy any presents.
Wait a minute.
You know, I was wondering about who brought all of those presents, because, you know, I saw the door open, and I saw this, like, it was like a log with legs came in and crouched over in the corner, and I got distracted because the hog was putting up a real fight. But when I looked again, there were all those presents.
It must have been...
Could it really be? The cagatillo? The shitting log of Catalonian Christmas?
Now I really do believe in the spirit of the holidays.
It's a true miracle.
And if you at home want to really get into the spirit of the holidays, there's no better way to do that than by purchasing Weird Medieval Guys: How to Live, Laugh, and Love in Dark Times.
That's right.
By a little-known author who you may have heard of by the name of Olivia M. Swarthout.
That's right. What does the M stand for? It's a secret.
I'll never tell.
Yes, that's right. As you probably know by now, I've written a book. It's a fabulous book, and more importantly, it makes a fabulous Christmas gift for
A
yourself,
stocking stuffer.
your loved ones,
Or a
your
Hanukkah gift,
family,
if you
your
do that.
lovers, your enemies, your neighbors, your teachers, your pets. Just anyone you know that you can get a book into their hands, get my book. Make sure it's that book.
Woo woo.
Please.
It's lovely. It's just a really great. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're not sure about whether or not you can get it delivered on time, then you can go and maybe ask your local independent bookstore.
Yes, please do.
It's, lots of places do stock it, believe it or not.
Yes, many do.
But yeah, no, I mean, thank you so much for listening once again to the Weird Medieval Guys podcast. We are going to be taking a little bit of a break over the Christmas period, but don't worry, there will still be podcast.
There's a special episode we've got lined up for you guys.
Yeah, so that'll see us out to the end of the year.
Yeah. So, I hope everyone enjoys their festive season immensely.
Whether or not you're eating fried dough or drinking weird ale with bread in it,
Wassail.
however you do it.
Absolutely. Just, take some time off, spend some time with some loved ones, and importantly, enjoy the holidays.
Yeah, well, I want to see what the shitting log gave me.
Let's take a look.
Shall we go?
I hope it's some Bucci sunglasses.
Oh, hey mate, it's Joe. I got some bad news. I don't know if I'll be able to make it to the Christmas party. Been excavating this well It's gone pretty deep. Steep sides. I think I'm a bit stuck. But have a good one, yeah? Merry Christmas.